Hello, and welcome to our bi-weekly Devstream. My name is Matt, and with me is Mark and Max. We're the 3Ms today. We're like that company that sells tape.
I was gonna think about the chocolate company that's on the M&Ms though. So
Yeah, that's
well,
Hello,
not
everybody.
that's not 3Ms. There's only two M's there.
is there enough lighting in my? Let me. Sorry.
I mean, you're
You can
pretty
keep going.
you're pretty dark.
There.
I'm gonna turn you down. I'm gonna turn these guys all. I feel like everybody's very quiet.
It's a dark and dreary overcast here. It's like the perfect lighting. I just had to open my window.
It's actually completely the same here, but my window is literally like if I'm touching my window now, so it's like very close to my face. Anyhow, how are we doing this week? Let's talk a little bit about Dead Harvest to get started.
Yeah, I really.
How do we how did that go?
I have to be honest. I felt a little mixed about the event this year. I feel like I'm really happy with the work that we did as a team. I was really happy with the the actual like content. But I feel like the balance we kind of dropped the ball a bit on that at the beginning, and it just I feel like the balance and the pacing it could have been a lot better. And I think just in terms of the event as a whole, how well this format works, I also feel kind of mixed at the beginning. I thought it'd be kind of cool to see a war where people are like taking it more seriously, more than like just kind of like a few day thing. But I'm really not sure how well that works, if I have to be completely honest. And I think I'd like to continue the tradition for next year. But I don't know, maybe we'll have to take a step back and think about what is the best way to do these types of events. So yeah, my conclusion is that I was excited about the content. I was excited about the work that we did as a team, about the art and like the implementation. But in terms of the format and the balance of it, and just the overall how it played out, I definitely feel a bit mixed. Yeah.
But you know what? I mean, at least that's the player experience in Foxhole, right? They control the narrative. So it ended a little bit faster than I would have liked, but at least it lasted until after Halloween. So I'm good
Yeah, I
enough with
mean, in
that.
terms of that part, I think last year was even worse in that regard. It kind of ended like it it took a couple days to end, but really after the first day or two, it was pretty much over, right? In terms of the player experience, it just kind of became uh, um, a bit of a de- a destabilized game. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's lots of possibilities. There's a whole year to go until the next one, and we'll take our lessons learned, and we'll hopefully next year um, can be better. But I'm still excited though. On a positive note, I'm still excited to see these mechs in action in a real war, which is
Yeah,
still yet to come.
and it's a real war without like zombie influence. So
Yeah. So
so I think those are cool. I was sad to hear that they didn't see any action
yeah.
because we put a lot of work into them. So that's pretty cool. All right. Well, why don't we get started with some community highlights, Max?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, let me pull this up. Yeah, so the very first one that we have here, just really phenomenal work by Rust. I thought the presentation and the overall, like, I don't know. I think it's coming a long way with the lighting and the I can't do this the way HB can. He's got more of an artist eye than I do. I'm more of like a I can tell you it looks cool, but that's much not much more than
So the
that.
one thing, so my takeaway from this when I saw it was, if Foxhole had the budget to do
Call of Duty.
like a CGI video at the beginning of the game, like a 1 minute CGI video that was like full blown. This like reminded me of that, like a fully pre-rendered CGI video using Foxhole assets. But the one thing that is amazing, is a testament to the art team, is how well the assets hold up in this. It's amazing for like a top-down game. Not to like toot our own horn, but I just think the art guys have just just shows how well the models are made and how well they hold up.
Yeah, and to that point about this being like the trailer, like just seeing this image itself, it's like without any moving parts, you can read a whole story from this one little image. Like seeing the guy with the sledgehammer dead, like this is clearly a partisan who came in and snuck in. He's got snuck in and killed this scrapper. He's got a diesel can there, which reads to me like he's been behind enemy lines long enough that he needs some fuel for his Jeep there. That there's radio towers, so it's almost like he's got to be quickly on the move because there's other guys that could be on the way to come and counter him. I like it, like it reads all that to me, and it's really just a snowy landscape with a dude in the middle.
I mean, this is clearly like Reach and Trail.
No, this is more in county.
I don't know about that.
Let's just argue about that for 5 minutes.
I think we should.
Yeah.
All right, next slide.
Next one.
So this one was Morrigan. He put this in a little bit after our last slide or our last stream where we were showing off a lot of the Dead Harvest arts, but it was so good we thought we gotta show it off. It's his Morrigan's Witch, his Witch of the Woods, I think. It's just a showcase of the zombie mechanics and trying to get everybody hyped up, but it came just like a day after our dev stream.
It's cool to see some of the like newer features, like the soul stones integrated into this, like kind of leading like an Army of the Dead sort of aesthetic to these, which we don't really get a lot of Dead Harvest art, so it's cool when it comes, especially when it was so like up to date.
Yeah, we need another art contest, and well, Morgan can win it, and we can make this a real canon character, right?
Sure.
All right, next slide. So this is obviously Mummy. I feel like I just want to include every one of Mummy's artworks because he does so much. But they're always cute. They're always awesome. It's
They're
just
in
really
every
good.
stream.
They're in every stream, and I'm not gonna stop doing that until he stops producing art. And then Super Vincent with his battle tank, which is a really good. It's just really good atmosphere and a good segue to the next slide, actually, just so you guys can be reminded of what the battle tank looks like.
It's got fog like Weathered Expanse.
You know what's the like?
No, this one's clearly Great March.
I said it's got fog like Weathered Expanse.
How about the image on the left? Like, which map is the patch of grass on?
Heartlands.
Heartland.
No,
every time I see
patch of grass.
Or Westgate.
These like every time I see these like cinematic images, it always makes me wanna work on a game in the Foxhole universe that isn't Foxhole, like some other type of game, like some first person like adventure game. Or when I see like the pixel art, I'm like, oh, I want to make like a point and click adventure game out of this, or something. And because it's just like I love the world, and I just like, it's kind of like all we usually get to see of the world is what happens in game, right? It's just the war played from like a top-down perspective. But when I see all these other perspectives, I just want to go in there and find out like what it's like what is it like to walk through a field here through this fog, and yeah, I don't know.
I've been playing Alien Isolation lately.
Oh, that's such a great game.
And I think it would be cool to have something like that where you're in some like old sort of underground bunker structure and have to like uncover some kind of mystery with a bunch of like people who are also trapped down. There's so many ways you can go that like
exactly
you know, it's like there's so many things that I would love to do as well, just from like a story perspective, because we're not sort of constrained exactly by like the realities of history, so there's so many places we can take it.
Yeah, and I think we've always like been really tempted by that, just like how even before the stream we were talking like offline about how it'd be so cool if there were like farmers in the world and players can actually play as a farmer, right? But anyways, that's a side tangent to this all.
Use a battle tank to get up on top of it so you can pick some apples from the tree.
Yeah.
And let's move on.
More fantastic Lego art.
Has it been the same people doing Lego, or?
I think so, but the name that posted this in the creative channel was Walker. I don't think that's the same name of the guy who was doing it before, but maybe he just changed his name. Anyway, he posted it as Walker, so I listed it as Walker. If I'm wrong with that name, please send me a private message on Discord and I'll correct that.
Yeah, this is in front of Abandoned Ward, I believe, with the I love the attention to detail, like the half broken statue.
Yeah.
This like the detail is just so high, and it's there's something about these Lego scenes that I don't know what it is, but it translates the feeling of Foxhole so well. Maybe because a lot of the stuff that the visuals that really like inspired us for this game is looking at a whole bunch like miniatures and like this kind of reminds me of like miniatures, right? So whenever I see these, I'm like, this is just exactly like Foxhole, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Even the bushes, like see those bushes beside the broken statue on the right side, like even those, I know, are like an accurate representation of where our bushes are.
Actually,
Like you could tell they fought at this bridge a lot.
Speaking of that area, I was just in there yesterday doing some tests for planning for some of the updates, and we were just trying to figure out how hard it was to uh, to build like bunker bases. And this is one of the areas where we were like, man, it's kind of hard to build like bunker bases around here. There's so much like foliage and there's so much like trees. And then here I am
And the
like looking at
gravestones.
this, and yeah, exactly. And here I am looking at this. I'm like, this is exactly it. Like it's like there will be nowhere to build like a bunker here if we wanted to.
Someone was saying in the chat that there's no warden models, but there is in the front.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have a
totally
mouse
wardens.
on screen, but it's by they're by the horses.
Clearly.
Looks like the wardens have abandoned ward.
I feel like the wardens are using muskets.
You know that rifle model? I swear I had a model like that when I was small.
You totally did. It's a real model. I had one too.
Yeah, it's like I think it came with like the pirate sets or something. Like
Yep. Yeah, I had like one, I remember, and it was like every time I lost it, I would go looking for it through my giant tub of Lego.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right, so this is a video that I wanted to showcase because this is Kerrigan has been doing just a review of Foxhole. I just wanted to showcase him because he's one of our smaller streamers, but he's definitely gotten a lot of views on this one. And I wanted to showcase him for just to show how much like how far his videos have come. His sound quality has improved a lot. You can tell he's been improving or he's been working at it. And I just wanted to showcase a video that's not one of our biggest streamers, so that you guys can so that not all of you guys, because not all of you guys are big streamers. Some of you want to get bigger, and I just wanted to share this guy with you as one of my favorites. I'll just post the link in the channel there. And this sort of thing helps us a lot. He's brutally honest with his review. It's not all positive, but it's good. Like it's perfectly honest, and this sort of thing helps our game a lot. It helps us grow. We'll be counting on you guys a lot when this game eventually reaches 1.0.
Yeah, I think also another great thing about this is that the game changes. Foxhole has changed so much over the last couple of years that trying to find a video that summarizes the current state of it is kind of tough, because a lot of the videos that have a lot of clicks on it and that tend to show up high in a search are not really representative of the game now. So something like this is super helpful.
It's the struggles of making an early access game.
Yeah, it's funny. You look up a tutorial, like the Foxhole tutorials right now, they're like a year old. It's
Some
like
of them are by you.
completely wrong.
So, actually,
All
a lot
right.
of them are by you. All right, let's get into our development update. Mark.
Yes, let's get into the exciting stuff. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about trains. Update 40 will not have trains, unfortunately.
Oh, what? I thought we were putting that in and we had like 5 slides about it.
Yeah, we're just gonna casually drop in trains with
Okay,
no
well,
build up or no excitement. So your train dreams are crushed, everyone. Sorry. But there's some other things that are here that we're here to talk. Well, actually, update 4 is interesting because it wasn't planned to be that big of an update, and it's still not a big update like update 37 or
not like a ton of
um,
content.
there isn't like a ton of content, but it just happened to be the update where a lot of these changes that we've been wanting to put into the game for a long time just somehow landed into this update. And these aren't necessarily flashy changes like, like new ships or like trains or anything like that. It's more these
Chat's
important.
chat's like flamethrower tanks. You can burn bushes, guys. If we were doing flames and flamethrowers, we wouldn't be saying this was a low content update.
Yeah, this is like there's not a whole lot of flashy features in this update. This is more of the nitty gritty things in the backlog that we wanted to get to, and not all of it is even going to be presented here. There's other changes that you'll see in the release notes. They just kind of all landed in this update, so we'll get to it. First of all, do you want to run through this one, Max?
Yeah, sure. So this one, so what we are going to be implementing, which I think a lot of people have been asking for, is more communication tools. So one of the bits of feedback that we've heard a lot about over the past weeks has been that there's a lot of toxic chat and there's a lot of little arguments that we get, especially now that we're handling a lot of the moderation ourselves among the dev team. We've noticed that a lot of people take issue with a lot of things that people are saying, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it doesn't. It's not obscene. Sometimes it's just minor disagreements. And so we wanted to give you guys a more granular tool for resolving disputes on a global scale, because maybe the internet can be a rough place, but in our game it's especially rough because we have such a wide one person can reach such a wide audience. Like in no other game can you just hop into the game and be able to talk to everybody in the server, possibly reaching hundreds if not thousands of players. So what we've created here was a communications rating, which basically allows you guys to um, subtly and appropriately rate people's like comments in these in the global chat, and then hopefully we will. Right now it's still very rough, it's still very basic, but we're hoping to get it to a point where you guys will be able to where certain actors that are causing a lot of problems will just naturally become quieter, and we're hoping to slow down the toxicity and increase the productive chatter. The things like logistics chat and world chat can be more productive place.
Yeah, so the one important thing that I do want to mention about this system is it like this does not work like the reporting system. This isn't something you can like downvote and then you'll see like an immediate impact. So I know the big concern will be like, well, maybe this could be like abused, but this system basically works slowly and it works. There's a lot of factors that are in place here. It's not simply, in fact, the upvoting and the downvoting here is just one um, of several factors that will like determine your rating here. So it's something, besides it being this tool, I would also say that it's more to encourage higher quality conversations, to make sure that the best conversations are the ones that are focused on the gameplay and not necessarily about other external things that are like unrelated to the game, and that over time, we'll start to just have higher quality chat in the game. So it's not, to be clear, it's not like the vote kick system where you can just click a couple of buttons and you see some changes happening. This is something that won't even happen. The impact of it will take time, and again, it's based on a variety of factors. Um it's not simply based on the voting. So, and at the same time, this doesn't for certain things like map posts and signposts, it doesn't prevent you from posting. It just simply will, depending on your rating, the longevity of your messages will be scaled there. So again, this is supposed to designed to encourage higher quality conversations over time, and to reduce some of the spam there. And again, ultimate goal is to make it so that the players that are trying to play the game, that are trying to use the communication tools for gameplay purposes, we're trying to improve the experience for them.
Yep, we'll be looking forward to you guys' feedback on this one. It's like you said, it's a very experimental feature, but we're hoping it'll be good.
Great. So the next thing I want to talk about is frontier border mechanics. So this is another one of those features that, again, it's not necessarily, this isn't like like a huge need for this right now, but it's something that has always been a problem, especially when we have larger updates and the population is larger. And what this is, certain problems that happen is that when there's not enough regions that are contested during a large during a large update, there's not enough capacity in the world to house all those players, and a lot of undesirable situations happen. Like, players will end up, especially a lot of them are new, will end up having to spawn in a backline region, and they'll end up like having to cross into a border just to see, like, just to get to the front, and then they die, they have to spawn back in the previous border, and this causes a lot of problems during those times. And what we want to do is try to push conflict into the inside of a region, as opposed to have the conflict happen at the border. And we've done various things to help address this in the past, like the frontier bases, as an example, is one of the features that help, so that when a region is locked down, then you can easily get a foothold into a region, as opposed to having to spawn at your fob in your friendly region and having to walk over, right? And we've also done certain things during high population situations, like spawning in a resistance base, which is sort of like a pre-built frontier base, to help with the situation. But we want to look more towards longer term solutions. And some of the things that we're going to be adding here is, now the borders that where frontier bases can be built will actually be highlighted on the map. Map intel sources very close to frontier borders will no longer show any map intel. So this is to make sure that these borders can't be like camped. Again, with the goal of allowing players to actually push into a region and turn it into a contested region more easily. And then the next thing is, that we're going to be adding is these a new type of base, which is a border base, and these are the natural extension of the frontier bases. But rather than have players go in and build these bases, they're going to be spawnable at these borders. And they will be much easier to build and claim than a frontier base. So, again, planning ahead, going into a situation like the upcoming winter update, when there's, potentially like thousands of players in the world, and there's not enough regions to house it, and the queues are growing large. This is a feature that players now, instead of us going in there, instead of the game spawning in something like a resistance base, which is what we've done in the past, players can now go in there and they can automatically trigger these bases on their own, right? So this is not a feature that players will necessarily see and be like, hey, this is something that we need right now. But this is something very much that every single big update we've had, there's been a huge problem. So it's a bit more of like a developer tool, but it's something that we want to move away from a model of us having to go in and sort of have the game introduce, make things happen, and more have players make things happen on their own.
Can you briefly explain how this is different from forts?
Yeah, so forts, they were pre-placed in the world, and they were always there. So the big difference with the border bases is they will only spawn in when there is a frontier border, right? So this is when a friendly region and an enemy region are neighboring each other, but they're fully dominated by each side. So basically, players aren't able to spawn in. In these cases only, these border bases will spawn at random locations along the road. And when the border becomes freed, they will no longer be there, right? So this will only exist next to frontier borders.
So it's kind of like more dynamic forts.
Yes,
As
exactly.
opposed to just the forts are always there and they're always usable and stuff. I think this makes it so that it's not as sort of abusable as forts were.
Absolutely.
Also, there
Yes.
isn't a million, thousand, quadrillion forts in the map, and I'm not angry about it. So
I know you weren't a fan of that one. No.
I certainly was not.
All right,
Spawn them
now
on the beaches.
Damn it.
now to get to the juicy stuff. Expanded win condition. So one of the things we want to do, we've been thinking about this for a very long time, and something we've talked about over the years. I'm personally very excited about this one. What we want to do is we're really happy with the win condition as it is now, so we don't want to change it. We love the fact that in Foxhole, one side can actually win the war, and even though it causes us a whole bunch of pain, often it's the thing that makes it special. The fact that you can actually win, right? So that's not going to change. But what we do want to do is make it so that instead of it being such a binary condition, that there are more varying degrees of success, so that things that you're doing in all stages of the war will happen. So if you're doing really well at the beginning, um, that you might be able to change what the final outcome is. Or if you make a last stand and you do a really good job at a last stand, maybe that will also have some sort of an impact on the outcome. So it's not just like we did all this work and at the very end we ended up losing and now we have nothing to show for, right? So instead of two victory conditions or two win conditions, there was going to be 8. And this is similar to something that you would see in a strategy game like uh, Total War, or I think Civilization probably has something similar, maybe not. Um, but the idea here is that these these wars require a whole lot of effort, right? Players spend weeks on these, and we want to make sure that sometimes you can do a good job even though you didn't win, but you did a good job. It's still going to matter, right? And the way that you can influence the outcome is by achieving reaching certain goals. You can kind of look at it like sub objectives, but they're not like artificial in that sense. It's not like you have to go over there to this region and capture a town or anything like that. We wanted to make sure that these were natural things that players from each faction were already trying to do by virtue of trying to go for the main win condition, right? So this is things like making a last stand, um, claiming a lot of territory at the start of a war, um, trying to claim, trying to like liberate a friendly town. Like these are all things you would naturally do if you wanna win if you want to win the war, right? So the type of achievements, the type of war achievements for the factions that will influence the win condition are listed here, and this is what we're going to be starting with. And for example, in a lot of cases, players put a lot of effort into making a last stand, right? And if you're able to, for example, survive longer than 3 days when your faction owns less than 20% of all towns, you will get the last stand achievement. And by getting the last stand achievement, you can move the win condition from something like a total defeat to something like a valiant defeat, right? So, again, this isn't going to change the nature of the game. It's not going to change the nature of the war. You still win by capturing the victory towns. Nothing changes there. But this is just to make sure that hard effort um, is still going to have somewhat of a reward at the end, and it's still going to count for something. So, this is something that I've been personally really excited about, and I'm interested in seeing how it's going to play out.
Nice.
Great. Moving on. Open top vehicles. Max, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. Everybody's favorite thing, open top vehicles. So a lot of you guys have given us feedback about open top vehicles, most of it in the negative, stating things like open top vehicles has no purpose. It just creates these vulnerable characters. And there was some frustration that the colonials end up with a lot more of these open top vehicles than the wardens do, which seems like a nerf, which is all very, very fair feedback. A lot of you, the solutions to which are not always as clear as the players might make it out to seem. Like, for example, we may not like. I think a lot of people just wanted us to close them up. Like, why have open top? Let's just close off the top of the vehicles. But the reality is that vehicles with open top had a real purpose, a realistic purpose, which was that it gave you a wider view of the field. So rather than changing our concepts, changing our vehicles, which we're not inclined to do at all, we wanted to give you guys more of a reason for open top vehicles. So in this case, we've increased the sight range of the gunner positions by about 25%, but it will change. It will vary based on what vehicle. So you'll have to sort of give us, again, we're looking for more feedback on that. Try out all of your old vehicles, the ones that maybe were difficult to use before, and let us know which ones you feel like are whether it needs to be pushed further or less, and hopefully we'll be able to come to a compromise with that. But the core principle behind this is that it's kind of, in a way, merging the commander seat with the gunner seat, so that you don't necessarily need a commander in order to run an open-top vehicle. That the gunner himself can be the one that's spotting. Oh, one last point is that the open-top vehicle, this will affect open-top vehicles, but it will also affect field weapons. Should have put a bullet point there.
Right.
I mean, technically, if you want to get really technical, a field weapon is an open top vehicle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, it is. Great. All right. Now I think the next slide is the really exciting one.
Speaking of field weapons, question mark?
Yeah.
Is it that one? Oh, no. This one's exciting, but it's not as exciting as the one after that. Yeah.
I just teased. It's fine.
Great. So
no, it is
hiding field weapons. So one of the things that we took a look at was how field weapons, we felt like we wanted them to have their own unique advantages, and we looked at the field weapons, and a lot of them just felt like, okay, this is just the worst version of what you eventually will have in the tank. And besides cost, we know cost is one thing. They are easier to produce, but we're thinking of other things. Some things we thought about is how they can be better transported up to the front, and that's something we're working on in the background. But another thing that came up to is that we felt like they should have an advantage in terms of how visible they were, because they're more of like infantry weapons, and we took a lot of like references in World War II, like the Germans hiding a lot of their guns inside like bushes, and just sort of as an infantry weapon, it's natural for you to want to hide this in a bush, right? And so this is a change that we're working on, and we do want to extend this to the emplacements as well. And it's a bit of a stretch goal. It came in late for update 40, so it's not necessarily something that might make it into the first release. But it is coming soon, and I'm personally really excited about this. I think most of the team is excited about this because whenever we thought about field weapons, we've always wanted something like this. And I also feel like it opens up new opportunities in the future, like player built structures that can do the same thing as a player. So something like a camo net, or that's sort of the direction that we hope that this is going to take. Great. Now this is the exciting slide, I think.
I mean, I thought that one was pretty exciting. So,
This one's pretty exciting.
so what do we got next?
This one's exciting. It's it's going to be controversial, but I've been wanting this for years. And watch it not be the next slide, and then it'll be funny, Matt.
Controversy.
Controversy.
This is the controversy slide.
Okay, here we go. Structure damage and suppression. So,
oh yeah, okay.
Heavy structure damage. Small arms can no longer damage structures. It's over. It's done.
Now that's gonna seem extreme.
Yeah. So this is something that I've actually talked to a lot of players about this over the last couple of years. I've gotten a lot of feedback on it. I've gotten a lot of feedback from inside the team, and we've always felt like it was silly that you can destroy structures with a pistol or even like a submachine gun. And there's a couple of changes that we're gonna be making to support this. So first of all, high explosive grenades are going to be very abundant. They will be unlocked at the start of a war, and they will be abundant in the way that like bandages are. Not quite that much, but to put your mind sort of in the correct place, we're tuning the balance of them so that they can be as easily distributed into the world as something like bandages, or at least close to that. And that this is the main way that players are going to have to deal with structures. And the other tool that we're going to be giving is some improvements into the suppression mechanics. So something that I think even after all these years, players don't even know about is that there is a suppression mechanic in the game with regards to the AI structures. So you can suppress AI structures and they will stop shooting at players temporarily. But this is something that's not surfaced very well. There's no feedback on it, but something that we're doing is we're going to be adding in some feedback so players will be able to easily tell. And we're also going to be tuning the suppression mechanics so that suppressed structures will stay suppressed for longer than before, so that with this heavy structure damage change, we're hoping that what we see won't actually change too much at the front line, at least. Where as long as you have a bunch of soldiers that a lot of players that are shooting at these structures, they will be suppressed and they will become harmless for a decent amount of time, at which point you can run in with an explosive. So this will change a lot of things in the game, especially it will change the partisan game as well. And there's going to be, I expect there will be a bunch of friction here. It's like kind of like tearing off the Band-Aid. But at the same time, though, I think that this is something we really wanted to happen before we go add a bunch of new weapons to the game or add a bunch of make further changes to structure building. We wanted this change to be in there at the foundation of that. And we'd rather make the change, cause some pain in the short run, but fix the problems, right? And then hopefully it will bear fruit in the long run.
Yeah, and on the note of that controversy, what would be really big help from you guys is your mental energy. This is obviously a very fundamental change to the way that Foxhole is going to run. And so there's bound to be several cases we haven't thought of where this just might be broken. And we'd like to hear about that from you guys sooner rather than later. One of the ones that was surfaced internally was, for example, like how do you get a player out of a foxhole? Like if he's in there with a rifle, how do you kill him? And we're hoping to be able to address stuff like that. But that's exactly the sort of thing that we're hoping to hear from you guys. Like how would you use this to break the game? We want to hear that as early as possible.
Great.
That said, we did do just this like a final point. We did do. We have done some testing with this, and one of the things I want to say is because I'm not usually involved in this part of like the game design at all, but I have been involved in some of the testing, and one of the things I will say is like as a combat person, this actually was really cool because you have to think about squad tactics. You can't just run in and like start shooting with your pistol or whatever. And I've been in many operations in Foxhole, and you just kind of you go from one foxhole to the next or one defense to the next, and you use your pistol or your SMG to clear out foxholes, and that's just the way it is. And now you actually have to have a squad that's a little bit more prepared. It's actually not time wise particularly much different. It just feels way better in my totally biased opinion. But that's just, I just wanted to kind of like say that because it's not clear how this actually affects your moment to moment in this like screenshot or in this slide, and it's kind of interesting, especially when you're approaching some of the bigger bases like the bunker bases or something. You really it changes the way the squad tactics kind of play out. So
yeah, and I think another door that it opens that I wanted to talk about was it's going to be another factor in balancing weapons moving forward. So when we do add more weapons to the game, having a suppression factor on the weapon is going to be interesting because it will open up the door for new types of weapons that might not necessarily deal a lot like damage, or they might be worse in other regards, but they might be really good at suppression. So you can picture things like a howitzer perhaps being good at suppression, and that playing a big factor at the front line. I think just having a really linear type of combat where you just move from location to location, shooting down these structures instead of having to worry about things like suppression. I think moving to this new model, I'm interested in seeing how that's going to play out. All right, so
let's go back to the cool thing now.
Spilled the beans on the vehicles, but one thing I did want to mention about the vehicles is that we are going to be talking about a new vehicle for each faction, but it's important to understand that these vehicles should be right now compared to their own tree. They're not meant to compete with each other. What we're doing is we're looking at each tree and we're seeing what we feel is missing, which we do feel like there is a lot of gaps. And this update is not going to fill those gaps. It's just one step forward. And we want to start to put in vehicles that we feel are missing or lacking in those trees. And the thing to keep in mind is that the vehicles should again be compared to their own trees and not be compared to the other vehicle that we're going to be showing today, right? So yeah, I will move on. This one. So this is the field siege mortar. This is going to be the warden weapon, and it's going to be what we did was we looked at the warden tree, and they didn't have a siege weapon, and they also didn't have anything that would make use of the 250 millimeter round. And it is, so in some regards, if you just look at the specs off the bat, it might be like, okay, this is worse than like the ballista, but we do think that this will appear more in the mid-tech tree, and it will be lower cost to produce. And combined with some of the upcoming changes to field weapon visibility, we think that it will have its own unique place in the game. Max, do you have anything to add to this one?
Yeah, well, I think that also we're hoping that with the changes to the suppression mechanics, that possibly destruction of buildings might be more important. But I just wanted to reiterate what Mark was saying, that I feel like the biggest advantage to these field weapons is that they will hopefully be with update 40 be able to be hidden in bushes, and yeah, that they're lower down in the tech tree, that they are more available, more readily available than perhaps the siege mortar tank, which is not accurately reflected on this card.
Yes, and I think the big thing that was mentioned there, and some people in chat were mentioning too, is with the changes to heavy structure damage, it's going to be even more important to have a weapon like this.
Yeah.
Great.
Also, small arms isn't gonna do a ton of damage to this, so it's another thing. It's like cover in a way. I remember in some of the tests we were using the ballista, and it was also great cover because it doesn't because of the small arms changes.
All right.
It just looks cool.
Also, yeah.
Leon did a great job on this.
Yeah,
one.
that counts, right? Looks counts, doesn't it? Doesn't anyone want to talk about how good it looks? Great.
Should
So
be a Steam achievement for killing infantry with this thing.
Steam achievements. I hope to get to that at some point. That'll be fun. All right. So moving on to so this is something where again, comparing it to the Warden tech tree, we're hoping it'll appear in like the mid to late game, and that's where we felt that the hole was, that the Wardens were kind of lacking content at that point in the tree. So moving on to the colonial vehicle, which is going to be the AT quote unquote sniper light tank, which is what we've been internally calling it. Max, do you want to describe this one, because I think you had a pretty big hand in this one?
Yeah, sure. So we are using the light tank chassis. So you guys might notice that it looks a lot like the light tank, the colonial light tank as it is now, but it flipped around. So and that's probably the most significant change. We felt like this vehicle, we don't want you guys comparing it to the Silverhand, because the Silverhand is a medium tank and it's more a frontline combat tank. This one is supposed to be sort of like a rear line sniper tank, as the name would suggest. But it's supposed to be more, I would say, more comparable to something like the AT half track, where it's more designed to be like a support weapon to a main tank line than it is supposed to be like a mainline weapon. But it will use the 68 millimeter round, and it will fire up to up to 45 meter range. But that's a huge advantage. We know that from the battle tank, from the long range battle tank that the Wardens had a while ago. But we are balancing that with the engine being at the front. So you guys, like I said, just like in most realistic World War II vehicles like of this type, they flip the turret around and then use the same chassis, but with the engine on the front. So it does make it fairly vulnerable to frontal attack. So there is that. Not to say that you're going to take a lot of damage from the front, but you are going to be able to lose your engine subsystem by just taking frontal damage. So we're hopeful that you guys will be able to find some way to use it that will make it an effective combat weapon. But again, as I hate to keep parroting this, but hopefully when the dev branch comes out, you guys will be able to get your hands on it, give it a test, and then let us know what changes you'd like to see. Oh, and it's open top. So we're going to be making good use of the open top mechanics. You guys will be able to see a little bit farther as the gunner, being able to shoot out to that maximum 45 meter range, unlike the Ascension, which was limited by its visual range, somewhat frustratingly. We're hopeful that you guys will enjoy it at the very least, and we'll make balance adjustments as necessary.
This tank is very fun to drive.
And is it safe to say that because of the open top visual range combined with the 45 meter range, that this will sort of be an easier to use vehicle on the colonial side? Because that's another feedback that we've heard a lot, is that the colonial vehicles were they required more coordination to use, whereas the Warden ones, something like a Silverhand, it just doesn't require um, at, as much complexity.
Yeah, I think that's one of the unfortunate side effects of the current meta right now is that it seems like the number one thing, or rather the only lever we have to pull is almost range, right? It's like the way that players fight in tanks right now is they sit at maximum range and then they shoot out to that maximum range and then fall back. And so we wanted to give you guys a tank that that exemplified that. That's exactly what you do with this. You move up, you take a shot, you fall back. That's the goal. So that hopefully it feeds into the meta. But that being said, it's not a meta that we're particularly happy with, but we understand that for now at least it's here to stay. So this will be a vehicle that we hope will fit into it nicely.
Great.
And again, it's very fun to drive. I don't know why, but this tank in particular has a good touch and feel. So, let's ask some questions. I imagine they're gonna get some doozies today. So, I'm just gonna start. Yeah, let's just start with the first one. Matrix 500 asks, has the team done any experiments regarding the one and only new vehicle 2020 trains?
So trains are in the works. We have a design for it, and we're working on it. But unfortunately, it is gonna miss the 2020 deadline. It won't make it in this year. It will. It's gonna be pushed to next year. Um, it, Unfortunately, we simply don't have enough time, and we don't want to sell the feature short. So it was kind of a no-brainer to push that one, and it's gonna disappoint a lot of people. But I feel like we also don't want to just rush it out the door, right?
But I feel like Julian's got a nice prototype of a nice train set in his house somewhere, in a box somewhere. He's painting it up for the concept art.
I don't know exactly how to say this name, so I'm not gonna try. But they ask, long barrel BT coming back. I think they mean the extension. Is that returning?
Actually, so I think the battle tanks in general, to touch on that a bit, we are taking a break from the battle tanks for the next couple of wars because we felt like they need to be reevaluated a bit because we felt like as soon as the battle tanks became available, we just saw nothing but like battle tank spam, and it kind of quickly overshadowed all the tanks that came prior to it, and it didn't give us the versatility in vehicles that we're trying to go for. So what we're doing is we're going to take a break from all the battle tanks for probably until the winter update, so we can have an easier time in balancing the other vehicles that come before it, like the Silverhand, the light tanks, this uh, new sniper tank, and the half tracks. And we're hoping that after we've gone through this process and we've made sure that they've had the breathing room that they need, then we're going to bring back the battle tanks in a way, hopefully, where they won't be spammed so much. Because I think you can all agree, anyone who's played in the last couple of wars before the Dead Harvest War, you'd know that like as soon as battle tanks were unlocked, it'd just be like 6 battle tanks at every front, and nothing else mattered. There's no point in having a light tank. There's no point in having anything else, right? So that's yeah.
Panzer Throw 3 asks, can you suppress foxholes with small arms without dealing damage to it? And then I'm gonna add on another couple of questions that I've seen. What do you consider small arms?
Yeah. So small arms is everything from a pistol to a heavy machine gun. Um, Basically anything that just fires like a bullet. It you will They will still be effective in suppressing structures. So you can totally shut down a foxhole, as an example. And if you have something like HMG, it will suppress a foxhole very quickly. And once it's suppressed, you can just walk around it, and it won't even harm you. But you won't be able. I think the biggest uh, change that we feel needs to happen sooner rather than later is things like using an HMG to, being able to stack. I think we can all agree. I mean, I know some people like to do this, and unfortunately, the meta is going to change here. But being able to do something like stack like almost 1,000 rounds, 1,000 like HMG ammo going into the back line and like shooting down watchtowers and things like that, or even using HMG to shoot down big structures, like a garrison house is just I've got a lot of feedback on it, and people always tell me, it's completely ridiculous that like when in World War II can you point an HMG at a house and like have it collapse? It's just completely ridiculous. So I think our goal isn't to like try to. Our goal actually was try to fix that like immersion problem, and fix some of the what we kind of feel is a cheap like meta. Stacking tons of ammo and just being able to go in the back line and do tons of like damage, to big structural things. I think we're completely on board with going to the back line and destroying trucks and trying to like disrupt a supply line. But we're hoping we want to make this change without making the front line any like grindier. In fact, if it is grindier, we would want to make a change because that's completely not the goal. So if there's certain things in the dev branch that you see where you're like, well, this is totally going to make the front line much worse, we'd like to hear that, because to be clear, that's not the goal, right? We're not trying to make the front line like more like slower, right? I think we want to keep where it's at right now. Just remove this silly element of being able to use a pistol to destroy a structure.
G-Man awesome. G-Man's awesome. G-Man's awesome. Asks any progress on the bridge update. I want to touch on that for a second, because if you're in FOD the other day, someone was asking me about that. I made a comment or two about a little bit of testing that we've been doing, but I don't think it's going to, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. I might be wrong, but I think we might not see them this year.
Yeah, the bridges.
It's be next year.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on the winter update in general, it's still being like reviewed. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and it's our whole schedule this year got pushed back, so we're just trying to figure out what's going to go where. And we originally wanted for the winter update, and there probably won't be time for that. But we're still reviewing what is going to be in the winter update and when the winter update is going to come. So it's still up in the air.
Clues asks, why is Matt the only one of you three who takes the time to decorate his wall? I'm curious about that as well.
I'm too busy with Foxhole.
I do some other streaming, and there's also like holes in my wall. Not holes, but like stripped paint, and I don't own this place, and the paint is cheap, and I don't want to paint it. So that's part of the it's like really stupid. Max, how about you?
I have other priorities. Okay, the house is like falling apart. It's just here in this room behind me is the only thing that's standing. Everything else is just like an open wall and like open exposed outlets and no baseboard heating. And it's just like, you know what? I'm prioritizing. This is as good as it's gonna get.
So similarly, you don't care that much. That was a joke question. I've gotten a few questions here about how are you going to get people out of foxholes or whatever if you cannot deal damage to them. I think that's kind of it seems to be a pretty big concern.
Yeah, so if a foxhole is suppressed, a mounted player won't be able to shoot out of it. This was a major issue that we identified and have a resolution for. So it will be like you can destroy the foxhole eventually, and then the player will be dead, but you won't be like invincible. So if you're suppressed, you're just basically going to be sitting there in the foxhole. So that's the solution now, right?
I'm gonna take a couple more questions because we're kind of over now. Infamous Beaver asks, will the HEs be lighter to keep partisans viable?
We're still bouncing. There's no current plans to make them lighter. I think that they won't. They're not stackable, so I think that's probably going to be the biggest limiting factor there. But um, I think we would. I think we do want to. I think that's the kind of feedback though that we want to hear about. And um, in terms of what it will impact the most, it probably will be um, those scenarios of, again, using like HMG ammo to destroy tons of things and not being able to do that anymore. Um, so I I think that in the future as well, we do want to look to introduce more weapons. That Because right now there's very little. Uh, there's not a lot of granularity there. It's just you have your HE grenade and then you would move up there to a satchel charge, right? But um, things that are possible in the future might be like, maybe there's like a lighter version of a satchel charge, right? Or maybe there's like a Bangalore, or maybe there's these other tools that you can use. But what the main point is that, like, using something like a Bangalore to destroy a structure, or a wall or something, it just or things like satchel charges or HE grenades, just the feeling just feels a lot more natural to us than someone pointing a pistol and shooting a wall like 500 times, which is what happens right now. Yeah.
I want to find a good question to kind of go off on. We haven't had any questions about this ask, so I'm going to ask. Things are moving. SB Scarface asks, do you think accomplishing a war achievement will reduce the number of required victory towns by a faction?
No. So our goal right now is to not change the fundamental way that a war is won. We've been very careful to not change that right now. It's not to say that'll never change, but the point of this isn't to make it so that now you do these other things and then you win the war because you do these other things, right? It's more by trying to win the war, putting effort into that effort should have something to show for, right? And because there's a lot of players that put we've seen a lot of players. I know a lot of players kind of feel, oh, once they feel like they can't win, they don't play anymore. But there are players that do like to stick around and they do like to make a last stand. And as an example for those players, even though they still walk away with a loss, they have something to show for, right? They could be like, we moved the needle there, and that what we did mattered, even if it just boils down to something like a war achievement. But for us, it's like, why don't we start there, right? Why don't we start there? And in all honesty, maybe it won't even matter to players. We don't really know. Maybe players will be like, you know what, it doesn't matter. All we care about is the main win condition. And if that's the case, then we'll make some more changes there, right? But we got to start somewhere.
And I feel like I'm going to ask this last question because I do think it is important contextually with regards to the small arms changes, which is obviously where most of the questions are going. I lost the person who asked that because the chat's just moving. But they asked, will you still be able to destroy blueprints with small arms?
Yes, I think blueprints is something that will be unchanged. Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this week. Usually I send it to HB now, but he's not here. So something YouTube, ask questions in the comments and he'll answer them, and there'll be a link somewhere. I don't do any of this. He always does this. So you guys have any last thoughts?
Don't worry, HB will be back next time. We hope.
Hopefully. Mark, you good?
I'm good.
All right, everybody. Stay foxy.